Okay, we're going to begin the Town of Sangerville Board of Selectmen special meeting, September 24th, 2018. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we will, I need a motion to recess our meeting.
Make a motion to recess.
Those in favor? 3. And now we will begin our public hearing on the purchase and sale for Abbey Fowler. Who would like to start? Go ahead.
Okay, I've read through the purchase and sale agreement, and in item 17, item B, my concern is that we haven't covered protection for the town in 2 to 8 years if this property is being purchased for speculation. We have nothing that protects us against any legal fees. We have nothing that protects us if he wants to sell it to somebody who put a strip club in there, or a bar, or a business that has the lights on all day and all night long, trucks going in and out. The committee spent a lot of time, like weeks, coming up with a list of things to protect the natural environment of that particular street. And I see nothing in here. And that section B of Article 17 says that nothing else can be changed. The other thing that I have a concern about is the bicentennial trees. These are not listed on anything in this purchase and sale. That's part of Sangerville's history. They've been there for 4 years. They were planted for a specific purpose. So when the next time comes along, 25 years, 50 years, hopefully 100 years, they'll still be there. That they will be there so that people can take pride in them, can know that they represent the town from times gone by, just like the rock that we were talking about earlier. They have the same historical history, I don't know another word. They have the same historic basis that rock has. And I would like to see that they're protected. I'd like to see it in writing that they're going to be protected. Do we have a letter of intent from him on what he's going to actually do on the property? I know that he's going to put in a radiant heating and he's going to do those things. Did we get a letter of intent that said anything that lays out how long it's going to take? What exactly is he going to do? Is he going to sell it within 2 years? Is he going to sell it within the 8-year period? I mean, to me, I think no deal is better than a bad deal. And this kind of looks like a bad deal to me. And I have been pushing for this since Charlie Cleves was on the board, and we're losing $60,000 in 5 years on this, on Abbey Fowler, because of bad lease agreements and that weren't being redone. So I really would love to see that building gone to someone where we don't have responsibility for it. But boy, there's a lot of stuff missing here, and I don't think we're protected. I don't think the neighborhood's protected. I don't think the town's protected. And I just, my pet's favorite thing is those bicentennial trees, and they're not protected either. And people can say what they want to say, but if it's not in writing, you can never enforce it. No one can ever enforce it unless somebody goes up there tomorrow, if this is close by the 30th of the month, and digs them up and takes them over to the rec field or wherever they're going to end up. That's the only way those can be protected. Do it before the contract.
Yeah, that's, what species of tree are they? Does anybody know?
Totally not.
Yeah, they're rock maple or sugar maple.
Yeah.
And I went and counted them before, and there are 5 left, and we planted 8 or 10. I can't remember.
It's about 8 or 10.
Yeah, and now there are only 5 left, so we need to put them somewhere where they'll be safe.
How big
As
around
well.
are they right now?
They're different sizes. There's one about as tall as I am. I'm 5'2". That's the biggest one. And then there are some that are only
Oh.
like this high.
Okay.
But they've been there since, well, May 22nd, 2014.
Black.
That's the day we planted them.
How big were they when you planted them?
Very
I
small.
mean, they were only.
Yeah, they were very
about
small.
like that.
They're slow growers.
Well,
Yeah.
no, they're just getting their feet under them, and
Yeah.
I think you'll see them really start taking off. I have a question, Pam, if you're, how much of that real estate is the town going to give up? Didn't we set aside some of that land where the trees are?
No.
So you're telling me that the whole
Parcel.
parcel up to the fence line, including down here, and we talked about saving a piece of property for the fire department expansion, if that,
They didn't want it,
who's they?
the fire department. I think, wasn't that part of the discussion that, at one point, we had that discussion?
No, but the answer to your question is the current proposal is for all the land, the entire parcel. As far as moving the trees, I don't see why we couldn't, and I'm sure that,
And that was brought up in the meeting when we had Brian at the Abbey Fowler Committee meeting, and we did talk about those trees, and Brian did say that it wouldn't be an issue moving.
Right.
and moving them in the fall
It's
is
not
actually
right,
not a bad
correct.
thing,
Right.
I
But those-
believe.
That's easily can be done.
Right, if we moved them before, if this thing goes through, if we move them before, then there's no question, nothing needs to be in writing.
Sure, I agree with you.
Nothing needs
Yep.
to happen other than us getting it done
Yep.
and figuring out where we're gonna put them.
Some of the other concerns that you talked about in terms of, that really almost sound like zoning things, you know, the type of business. This has come up a lot over the years when any discussion of doing something with this property. And what always kind of jumps out at me anyway is I'm not sure why this piece of property would be any different than any other piece of property in town. A person can do anything they want with their property right now because we really don't have, or Jerry would know, there's not much in the way of restrictions, is there?
No.
I mean, so it's not, the risk to some sort of a project or a business that people might find offensive exists all around us. This isn't any different than any other piece of land that's here. If we take Mr. Howard at face value, that's not his intention at all. In fact, the last time we talked with him, he's kind of got his eye set on that being his location to run his company out of that, along with other folks that might use that as office space. So it's kind of a professional building. Will that ever happen? I hope so, I think it will. But I think you also asked, can he sell it? We've had this looked at by the town attorney, and these conditions go with it. So that would be a pretty hard sell. I mean, if we agree to do this, and next spring he decides he wants to sell it, all of these conditions are gonna go with it. I don't think any bank's gonna finance it, because you're gonna have to put in the radiant heat and the windows and all of the things that he's agreed to. And if they don't, he could sell it if he could find somebody to buy it, but if they don't do all these things, they run the risk of the town taking it back.
As
So-
a former banker, I'll let you know that could be a commercial construction loan.
Well, that's,
So,
and
yeah.
that would be fantastic, if, for example, he found somebody who had a great plan and he wanted to sell it. For Sangerville's purposes, it's really about turning this into an inflow instead of an outflow.
Right.
Even if we look at the 8-year window here, I don't know what the assessed value is gonna be once, because it's never really been assessed, but if it's $100,000, that's close to
I'm all
$2,000
for
a
the
year.
tax benefits, all for the tax benefits, all for bringing business into town. Maybe it will fill some empty houses up
Sure.
as well.
Good.
Or maybe it might cause another little tiny grocery store or something to be built in town, or whatever. I just worry that we had a big scare a few years ago about on Route 23, a strip club coming in, or a topless bar or something.
Gentleman's club, we
Yeah,
call it.
gentleman's
I
club.
remember that.
Yeah.
And that could happen tomorrow with another location. There's not much, until we create some zoning, or we're really, that's just the reality of our situation, so.
Okay. So we don't actually then, we're not giving any consideration to the people who live on these three streets, Pleasant,
Actually,
School, and
yeah.
Church.
Yeah,
If, as long as he goes with what he's proposing, I think the end product will be less disruptive than, say, a school with buses and
If
kids and.
If you, yeah, I lived next door to the school and it was horrendous.
Oh, so I doubt that it will be that
It was
noisy.
horrendous.
Noisy, so.
But right next to that school, as a matter of fact.
wow.
And it was
Busy.
challenging. It was really challenging. And it wasn't really the kids necessarily, it was the people that were there in the evening that were really awful. But anyway, you don't need to know that. But I want this to be sold. I want it to be sold, I want it to be taken off our rolls. I just want to make sure that and I know you guys are good selectmen, every single one of you, and you care about the town. I just want to make sure that we're not getting ourselves into something that is going to cost us money 8 years down the road, because it's being purchased on speculation.
It doesn't, if you guys, I mean, we.
My thought is, it doesn't matter who you sell this to, you're gonna have, there's a thought that could happen.
Yep.
So with the direction we're going in, we're selling it to a longtime town resident who has a very well-established business. And if you drive by his property, I don't think there's anybody who's gonna say anything negative about how Brian keeps that atmosphere of his business and that whole area kept. If he could do half of that up here, I'm very confident that all the residents will be very happy with what we did. And that's kind of my thought of moving this forward, is the whole thing is a gamble in whatever direction we go, but I think this is a very good direction for what we can see of who he is as a person. And I think that's a big part of it.
The other thing is, as far as risk, Brian, we have earnestly spoken with Brian, and he has expressed the fact that he is a resident of this town. He's raising his family. He's chosen to settle there as a young man and to raise his family here. And we've thrown those questions out. What if this? What if that? And he said, I don't want any of those things that you're talking about there either. He said, I'm raising my family here and I plan on staying here. And I think, again, there's risk involved, but at least he is a known community member, as opposed to somebody from the outside coming in and having a grand plan for that, and all of us saying, yeah, that sounds great, but has no vested interest in Sangerville. So, we did talk about that, and we talked to him about that. Mm-hmm. And not that he took offense when we said, well, what if you put a straight, but he said, what are you talking about? This is my town too. I care about this town. And he cares about that building. So, there is at one point or another, not a leap of faith. I mean, we do have legal documents, but at one point or another, we got to let go.
Right.
And maybe it's easier for me to say that. Oh, go ahead, Mike. You're running the show.
No, tell me.
What about the taxes? How's that gonna work? When's it gonna commence, and is it progressive, is it developed?
It will be assessed like any other piece of property in town. So this year he'll have a prorated tax bill because he won't own it for the whole year.
He won't have a tax bill for 2018, it will go in for 2019.
Okay,
Right.
but it hasn't been officially assessed ever, I don't
Will
believe.
it be progressive as it's developed?
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, as he adds to the value of that building, it'll be assessed and his taxes will go up. So. Oh, your hand is right in line with that post.
Every year at town meeting, Abby Fowler has been a stone around our neck. And literally, because we have pumped thousands of dollars into that building and it has reaped nothing. We had to pass it back and forth to the Historical Society so that we could get the asbestos and all the other elements out of the building. Brian Howard has earned the reputation of being a very reputable man, and I have seen some of the projects that he has done. go into the YMCA down to Dover and see what he has done to the pool area in there. I think that if we have the opportunity to sell this property to somebody who's going to make it attractive, I mean, I'm surprised those windows aren't all smashed out, to tell you the truth. And as far as not having what you can't do in town, you can't raise livestock in town. So the chances of him raising chickens and pigs there is pretty much nil. So personally, I think this is a good deal, and we're lucky to have it.
Chair.
I too think it's important to recognize that the proposed use for it was our second choice as a committee. That type of business doesn't have a big impact on a residential neighborhood. You know, there's no shipping and receiving and big floodlights. It's to be an office complex. So that's a good use for that building, and with very little impact on the community. Brady had sent an email voicing some concerns, and some of those went back to our original proposals that we did. And this addresses some of them by rather than a bond, we got a right of re-entry if he doesn't perform, and some things like that. I noticeably missing was the resale, and I know that this will be recorded as such. Would what's written here continue to another buyer by
Yes.
means of deed?
Yes. Yep, all those conditions, in other words, those conditions are gonna exist for 8 years. Now, after 8 years, it's a jump ball. You can sell it to anybody who wants to. Just like anybody else that owns a piece of property in Sangerville.
We're just, basically, I mean, if you look at the capital expenditure he's gonna do to that property to get it by what's in here, if he did sell it in 8 years, I would think with that type of investment, it's not gonna be a strip club. I mean, the money he's gonna put into that building, if he does sell it, it's gonna be to a higher end professional type building.
He did have, in addition to his own company's office being there potentially, he had shared with us that there had been some interest from some of the folks involved with Mayo. I don't know if it was administrative or doctors or what it was, but there are people that are looking for space that isn't quite as expensive as what's over there near the hospital. So he's already kind of trial ballooning that. So
You mentioned the state, well, I mean, the sheriff's department, aren't they leasing the space now up in Guilford? I mean, there is a need for this type of thing, so.
I think him being a known entity is really powerful. I mean, we could have some guys pull in with Cadillacs and have a great proposal that we don't know anything about him. I think he just seems to have pride in what he does, and I just don't think he's gonna do a sloppy job there.
He wouldn't live in town if he did,
Well,
Right.
I mean,
afterwards.
it just doesn't seem like something he'd wanna put his name on, that's
Right.
all.
Right.
And he's certainly not gonna want us, you know, he's not gonna have us acquire it through not paying taxes. He's not gonna do something like that. I don't believe so. I mean, it just doesn't seem like that's likely to be how this thing plays out.
You know, when you take a strange developer, you don't know
No.
what they're gonna do.
No.
It's all a big buck. They don't live in town, they don't care.
And he's been on this project since before the grant. His vision then was more along senior living, but he kind of helped facilitate that whole
Well,
process.
He invested all the time, the effort and everything to get that grant going, as far as that was where the senior living came from, was the work that he had done preliminary to move that all forward. So he's been invested in this quite a long time, so.
Wait, did you have a
one
question?
more question.
he has 3 years to start, up to 3 years to start any of the improvements. Was that his time or was that the board's time?
We went back and forth on some of these times and dates, and I don't remember the whole process, but there has been some back and forth. So ultimately, the three of us and he and his attorney kind of landed with what you see in front of you here, so. And I don't remember I don't know if that was one of the dates that we got moved, but.
Well, I know that was one of the discussions that we had with the attorney, was this, because this was in lieu of the performance bond. It's like, well, what are these years, you know, and
Yeah,
so we talked about that quite a
It's
bit.
just that when I first saw that, it was 3 years added to, you know, I mean, that building is pretty sorry shape, like Patty said. And
Well, the only thing
town
behind
hasn't, I mean, if we look at it right tonight, I went around to look at it, it doesn't have a whole lot of maintenance. Outside leaves should be raked. I mean, if we're selling a product, we should, you know, as a town, maybe do a little something to it. At least get those leaves out of the entryway.
well, it's interesting, this thing has been, you know, a topic in Sangerville for nearly a decade. And, there's some business people in town, and no one's ever approached any of us and said, you know, I'd be willing to throw 40 grand at that, or I'd be willing to do, there hasn't been any interest, none. The only really strong local interest has been to, you know, turn into a green space or something like this,
Right.
go the other direction.
But we
What
have
is
the
yours?
one interested party, but he wants it from manufacturing.
Right.
Yeah, well, that
Totally goes
and
against.
everybody was, no,
So we didn't even,
Well, it was
Right.
after Brian had come
yeah,
to
Right,
us
right.
too,
correct.
so.
But I mean, that's
after
the only
we
other,
started. There, yeah. Full
What
disclosure.
is your sense after talking with Brian of when he would like to get going on it?
this one.
that's what.
What he said to us when we asked him about that, he said it really depends on juggling all of his jobs. And he said, if I have a crew that is sitting for 2 days, I'm gonna have them up there tearing stuff down. You know, so his idea is that, I guess he has multiple crews out around and about in this state. And nobody wants crews with downtime. And so I think he envisions that whenever there is downtime for any one man or woman, they're gonna be up there doing something. I mean,
It's
that
like the
was,
filler for
that
him.
was-
yeah,
yeah, that was
and
the
I
impression.
think that is really, really, something that is,
That would make me feel
yeah,
better if I
He's-
saw that he was starting right away.
yeah,
And I think in a way that makes us a special fit for him, because he does work around it a lot in this county, and I'm sure he has times when, gee, there's 10 days or 5 days. Whereas someone who's gonna dedicate a crew to this, that's a major commitment. But for him, and the structure of this thing, he may not touch it for 6 months, but then he might have a really busy 3 months.
Yep.
So,
And he figured the winter time is where he's gonna have the most
Yeah.
up there.
the
'Cause
winter
where-
time,
yeah,
that's correct.
He's the slowest.
That's correct,
So he could have a lot of crew in there in the
Yeah.
winter time.
Yeah.
But throughout the summer and the fall, that's why the dates are spread out a little bit, just so it would work
to
for
give
on
him
that.
some latitude. But when we asked him about that, he said, I could have people up there tomorrow, because he said, tomorrow, I've got 5 people that I don't know what I'm gonna do. You know, that was kind of how he answered, you know, if I have it. But I can't guarantee you tomorrow, because I don't, so he just said it was gonna be a great fit for always keeping people working. So,
Yeah, thank you.
I have one other question. I read the issue about environmental issues in the tank. I don't understand what I read.
well, that was another one where the town's attorney and his attorney went back and forth 2 or 3 times before the town's attorney said, okay, that language is acceptable, I'm kinda with you. But we specifically carved out the tank because everybody knows there's a tank there. So that can't be a rationale for saying, hey, there's a tank here, because we know there's a tank there. And so that's gonna be his problem. And so that's,
a disagreement, that's his problem?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's all this about reconvey and all
Uh,
that.
Well, it's kind of interesting, there's a clause there where if things don't go the way he would like, he can give it back to us, and then after a certain amount of time, if things don't go the way we would like, we can take it away from him. So it's kind of,
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty excited about this. I think it's going to be a good thing for the town. We're gonna have to be patient. But I just don't see him hanging his name on this thing and having it be an eyesore. I don't think he's gonna do that.
It depends a lot on his occupancy too. If he gets it filled up and so he can design the inside to fit, he could put a crew right onto it.
Yep, but the fact that he wants to put his own in there.
He subs up about all of his work,
Yep,
and, he would scrape up a crew and go right down on it if he had it, ready to go. People could move in. He did a really big job down to Derby on the railroad
Yeah.
station. And, the outfit that owns that will have nobody else but him to
So,
do that project.
wow.
My biggest fear is Brian's had this whole thought process of doing this for quite a while. And sees the benefit for him as a businessman, being able to utilize his crews when they're down, and the benefit in the end. Well, you don't have to drive around this area very far between Dover and Dexter. There is all kinds of property with big buildings that could easily be renovated into the same thing. And I think that we're fortunate to be able to have this deal and get it for our town, because if we lose it, I think if we lose this time, there isn't gonna be another offer. I think if we don't take this, he's gonna take this plan and he's gonna go to a different town and he's gonna do it there.
You've got a good example in Dexter, the big mill. I'm sure that's got a lot of vacancy that
Yep.
they're pushing to rent out offices and stuff.
I just think it's a really good thing for our
I
town.
think it's high time we did something in a positive way. I really do. And everything's a gamble. Putting your feet on the floor in the morning's a gamble. You never know what's gonna happen, I mean.
there really isn't a lot of downside in this for us. I mean, worst case scenario, he doesn't do any of the things he says he's gonna do. He's still gonna pay taxes on it for 5 or 6 years. We won't mow the grass and we won't plow the yard. We'll probably save $35,000 and we'll end up with the property back. I don't think that's gonna happen, but that's our worst case scenario.
Well,
Right.
let's take that one more step. We get the property back, and this would be after 8 years. I'm hoping that the town would then say, enough is enough, let's
That will probably be somebody other than the three of us.
do something. Yeah, well, that's true, we won't all be here, but I think it's time to put the old girl to rest.
Yeah, let's give this a shot, that's kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah, I agree with you on giving it a good shot. I do have one comment if we're ready to close here. As member of the committee, I just really found out about this tonight. I mean, you sent it out Friday, Lois, and I'm not saying I just didn't get to it until tonight after work. And so I really didn't, I just scanned it. And I didn't get into any of the meat and potatoes of, some of the difficult things that it is for a farmer to try to read lawyerese. And so I think I would like to have seen this agreement, this purchase and sales agreement, go before our committee and give us a chance to bat this around in committee to kind of sort of educate ourselves a little better on it. Not that I don't feel that the townspeople right here have given it a good go-over, but it would have made me as a committee, trying to be a responsible committee member, feel a lot better if that had been done. I know that Bridie had some concerns. Diane Clark isn't here, and I'm thinking that might have been a better way to handle it from my perspective.
I don't disagree with you.
Yep. I always think that if we're going to have public hearing of anything, the better educated the townspeople are prior to, the smoother it goes.
And that's really the whole, I mean, we already got approval to sell it. We just wanted to have communication and transparency. That's really why this hearing was agreed to. And we all appreciate the committee's input. When we went from the bond strategy to this basically capital improvement strategy, the committee had that document, but then the details had to be worked out, the dates, the times, the years. And we got it essentially 10 days ago. So,
And really, that's the only change since when we met with the committee.
Yeah,
is
the original.
The dates and times. I mean,
And this 10B.
yeah, we would have a selectmen meeting and one of us would say, check with the attorney, and then it would go back. So it was just a tweak, but we did that for
We've been
several,
doing it.
like a month and a half,
Yeah.
2 months.
Every
Yeah.
meeting.
Well, ever since, well, I don't remember when, you remember, Jerry, when was that meeting we had with the committee? About the first one? I mean, it's been quite a while. I don't remember the date, that's why I don't remember, it's a month, 2 months, it's probably 2 months ago now.
I have that. It'll take me this time.
Well, I have one that was September 11th, 2017.
Yeah, and our
Long
last
time ago.
meeting on this was November 8th, 17.
Really?
There was also a meeting when we were
Now,
gone.
we did talk to the select board after.
Right, a couple times.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
we had like a workshop kind of thing. But yeah, you guys attended a meeting here.
September and November. And then May was when we met with Brian Howard,
Yep, May 15th.
May 15th.
And the attorneys went back and forth. I mean, we were like, yeah, well, this looks fine. And then the town's attorney looked at it and said, well, we don't think it's so fine. So then they went back and forth like attorneys do.
I think I had sent the original one to everybody. So really the only ones that's been tweaked a lot is this 10B and,
The oil tank, this new one.
yeah, that's the oil tank one.
Yeah.
And,
Well, honestly, that's how that come to be, because that 10B section, that got put in there. So, and there wasn't anything about the oil tank, so then we went back and forth, well, that,
Yeah, we
thinking
don't
that
want
was
to hand
why that was there, so
Right.
they added that piece in there, and then
Right.
it was the days, how long does he have to, to use that? So they tweaked it
Yeah.
again for that.
Well, if I may speak, I feel very comfortable with this now after listening to you folks. I think we're lucky to have somebody that is a citizen of Sangerville. And I think that I've been wanting this to be gone for a long time. And I think we probably have the best deal that we're going to get, as Dale said. The only thing that I'd like to know is who's going to take care of the trees. And when.
Do you have a suggestion, Tom?
Yeah, I do. I think if we are going to do something, we should probably root prune them right now. And they will go through the fall and winter, root pruned every other spade. And that'll sever the roots, and in the spring, they'll start to ball up more roots underneath. And what we're essentially trying to do is to get a ball of roots under them, so that when we do move them, we'll be a lot better shape percentage-wise of them coming off again. If he's in no rush to do it, if we could do that a couple of times, once this fall, and I'll do it tomorrow.
There you go.
Thank you.
And if the deal doesn't fall through, it will not hurt the tree to leave it right there again. So I'll go and do every other spade tomorrow, and if we can do another one of those in the spring, let it set for the summer again, then we can lift that as a ball, especially the one that's this tall, you said.
Yeah, it's like as tall as I am.
Yeah.
Which isn't real tall, but it's pretty tall for a small tree like
Yeah.
that.
And then we need somebody to pick a new location.
Right.
Yes.
Can we maybe give that to the rec committee?
We
Because
Yeah.
they had come to me and wanted.
Parks really,
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
meant, the
yeah,
parks.
yeah.
They had
Yeah,
come
yeah.
to me early and wanted to know if they could go into the forest and pull some, and which I had no problem with. But
I'm just wondering if that location over there, if you might eyeball that and say, this is a better spot for this type of
Right,
tree than
right.
over there.
Like, right,
Because if you ask me, I wouldn't know, but you probably would know, so.
Might be helpful.
Yeah, you could
An
maybe,
ideal
these are
spot
good
for
area,
them.
or at least stay out of this area, or that kind of thing, so.
Well, maybe all of us could be thinking if there's,
Yeah.
you know, good places for rock maple. That used to be a wet area over there. I don't know what it's like anymore, but
Someone had suggested the monument, and they've had to cut down those trees that they had over there. Plus, they've planted hydrangeas and all kinds of stuff there over the years, and everything's died. So I would not think that that would be a good spot for it. I would think the rec center
I think you're right.
area, the
I think you're right.
recreational field would be, if there's a spot there that would be better,
That would be
then
good.
that would be a better
That
place.
would be ideal.
And we
Yeah.
can't guarantee the outcome of the building over here. And if you planted those trees, sold that property, you're faced with, wait a minute, those are our bicentennial trees. What do we do?
Right, because the Masonic Hall's already for sale. And maybe the Legion might be one of these days, so.
Well, the park is a logical place,
Right.
yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
for
Too
sure.
bad we couldn't do something around that gazebo. I mean, that's kinda getting to be the focal
That's-
center.
I
You can
think-
figure out, I know they planted a lot of field pine.
Yeah, but they went back to the tree line with
There's
those mostly.
something
Yeah.
fairly close, you can see them fairly
Yeah.
close to there. There may be something, these may be a better choice than what we already have planned.
There's even some, and we haven't had any official park meeting on this, but there's some thought about reconfiguring the roads there. Now we've got so much, activity there at times, when people are trying to bring their, watercraft in, and we own plenty of land there, there might be a possibility of making a road around, so with that in mind, where we put these trees would be more towards the center if we can do it, I would
Right.
think.
I'm thinking that gazebo would work. I mean,
Well, better place, really.
20 years from now, that would be a nice shade.
Mm.
And that's what that area needs right
Yeah.
there.
Beautiful foliage.
Yeah.
So would we need something in writing from Mr. Howard to say that we could go back after next summer and dig those up and replant them elsewhere?
We'll get that
Okay,
squared away.
okay.
I
I'm
can
happy.
assure you that night that we met, that was part of the conversation.
Yeah, he had no
There
objection
was,
to that at all.
yeah, no
He
issue
would let
about.
us know if he
Yes.
planned to go up that close.
Well,
to it.
his focus is that building right now.
That's right.
So, he didn't mention anything about anything, and when we did say that about the trees, he's no issue about it.
And if he can do that for at least until the next fall, and then I would like to let it go through another winter and then plant them in the spring.
Correct.
So we've got, what, 2 springs?
Two winters.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, yeah.
That's okay though, I mean, if we've got the time, we might as well plan
Do
it
it
out.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't mind, he'd probably let you go as long as you wanna go, but I don't wanna speak for him, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine, he knows the importance of those, so.
He might be upset that we're moving them.
Well, I thought that as well,
And
that
if he-
that
if
it's.
he
That would be
is,
on
let's-
private property though. If we
Yeah,
left them, that would be on private property, and I don't think that's a good,
Ultimately, we wanna move them,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, at the very least, we could swap with him, say, okay, we want those trees, we're gonna put these in.
Bring you some pine trees.
Yeah, or whatever, we could, different rock maples, but,
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's just a matter of, if his reaction is, well, if you want them, fine, but take them, then we'll have to deal with that, but
Yeah.
I,
No, I agree, I think we'll move them
yeah,
and put them in a spot that belongs to the town.
Town.
sure, yeah,
When we move them, could we consider having a plaque put up? I
anything to
would
be
think that would be
considered,
nice,
yeah,
like we have at the Veterans Memorial down there.
particularly if it ends up near the gazebo.
What I really think that hopefully within very soon, we won't need an Abby Fowler committee anymore. And maybe there's some members of the Abby Fowler committee that would mind getting on the Parks committee.
You could use it.
And
There you
that would be
go,
a new
yeah.
focal point for our town and
Yeah.
could help come up with where the trees are gonna go. And if we need to do a fundraiser to make a plaque or a stone or something for the trees, that would be
That piece of property has a lot of
a
potential,
lot of, and yeah.
but I do think we need to
Probably get
get,
the Legion to kick in something like that.
So,
I think we need a bigger strategy for that, not to get off topic, but
Right, right.
that's, it's a beautiful piece of land.
Yeah, they did a nice job with that. It really looks nice.
Anything else? Right, have a motion to
Go back to our,
end our public hearing first.
make a motion to end our public hearing on the purchase and sale agreement for Abbey Fowler.
All in favor? It's unanimous. A motion to go back, to resume our,
Make a motion to resume our special meeting.
in favor? Unanimous? At this point, we should entertain a motion to proceed with this. We can talk about it, but it's probably the best way to move this ahead.
Right. Well, I think based on, you know, the input from the residents here today, and I think there's a lot of valid questions and concerns, but I do think that we also talked about all of those things and have answered them to the best of our ability. So I feel as though we can go ahead and sell the Abbey Fowler School for $1 to Brian Howard
Yeah, based on the terms of this purchase.
of this
and sale
purchase and
agreement.
sale agreement. And we do want to discuss with Brian and perhaps have an agreement with him as far as the trees. So that's,
Yeah, I think the idea of leaving them on private property is
right,
not
yeah,
attractive. I
yeah.
think we should move them as soon as feasible,
right,
and I'm sure he won't object to that.
right.
Is that a motion?
That's, yeah,
But-
I make a motion.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, those in favor of transferring this property by the terms of this agreement? It's unanimous.
Yay.
Tell you how long it's been since we tried to get rid of that building. Joe Clark was town manager.
Yes.
Wow.
I remember.
Yeah.
I do.
We were trying to get it before that.
Oh, you were?
At every meeting, and I got it. At least 15 years we've been trying to.
It was before Joe.
Voted to sell
My
it,
brother's not
town
here,
voted to
like,
build
I don't
it,
want it.
on and on.
How many votes did we have?
Oh,
How many?
least
A lot.
Oh,
least five.
maybe
I'll
more.
second that.
Every
Every
town
year.
meeting we voted.
Every town meeting.
I would say to
Do you
you,
want us to sign this?
I've been down there. to
let
find
me-
out, down there.
Check with Gerald and see if we wanna add just a little clause, the town reserves the right to remove the bicentennial trees within 2 years or something like that.
I wouldn't, yeah, I mean, you could do it in that, you just get a separate agreement drawn up with Brian himself and it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Probably
sure.
better than you would have to pay
Then you-
attorney
Right, then you
fees.
won't have to
Yeah,
argue
yeah.
this. I mean,
Yeah,
We
then,
just
yeah.
want a simple agreement between
Yeah.
us and Brian that,
Okay.
you know, Toby's
Yeah.
gonna cut the,
So,
as he said, the roots now and in the spring and in the fall.
then in
and
the fall,
2
yeah.
years from now, he's gonna pull them. If that's not agreeable for Brian, because he has plans in that time frame, then
So
I
we're
would go back to
talking
Toby and
a year
say,
and a
we're
He'll
half.
take
gonna
them
cut it a
quick.
little shorter, what are we gonna do?
Let's go now.
Whatever, well, I don't think we have to go to that. We can, we should go this way.
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think they're gonna bring in a spade.
Make a motion
I think
to
the
adjourn.
matter is-
I make a motion to adjourn.
Landscaping.
I'll second it. Those in favor?
So if he has one, I would.
We're adjourned.